months since we've been talking about doing this, and I really appreciate this opportunity, as does my son Will, who will be on part of this trip with us. I guess I have to tell that story. Very briefly, unlike most of you in this room, I did not distinguish myself at school. I went to school in this city, I went to Glebe Collegiate, and I know there's a couple of Glebe people here today, but I didn't, let's just say I didn't get through Glebe. Like a mutual parting of the ways. But I ended up traveling out west and working in a number of places. I ended up working a little airline called Transair, and I was in Churchill, Manitoba in the summer of 1968. And one day, working for Transair, where I did everything, load bags, fuel the aircraft, I was 19. The ticket agents were having trouble loading the aircraft. They'd oversold the flight. They were busy with irate passengers at the counter, so they asked me to announce the flight on the PA system, which I did. It said, Transair Flight 106 for Thompson, LaPaw, and Winnipeg is now ready for boarding at Gate 1. We only had one gate. But anyway, there was this fellow in the waiting room, and he came running up to me and said, "Hey, you got a really good voice." And I said, "Well, thank you." And he said, "No, I'm the manager of the radio station here, a little CBC Northern service station in Churchill, and I can't find anybody to work the late shift. Would you be interested?" And I started the next night. So it really is true, the sort of, turn left, turn right, who knows what, maybe around the corner. I got an incredibly lucky break. I worked extremely hard after that, and I worked my way up through the system over 42 years. But it worked out quite well for me, making that flight for Transair. Jeff's right, I am passionate about the North. It started in those days in Churchill, where I spent just over 3 years. And it continues to this day, where I try to encourage our network to do as much as we can in bringing forward Arctic stories to the rest of the country. We've done a lot, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, as we've focused on the changing nature of our North. I was reading an article just the other day that quoted a fellow by the name of Dr. John Schmall. I don't know him. He teaches at Queen's. He's involved, I think, in climate science and environmental science. But he had an interesting quote. To paraphrase it, went something like this: no matter how you measure Canada, half the landmass is in the Arctic, and 2/3 of the coastline is in the Arctic. Therefore, we are an Arctic nation. Now, I loved reading that. I thought it was great. I mean, I think we all know, even those of us who are not from Canada, that the overwhelming majority of Canadians do not live in the Arctic. We live kind of hugging the border of the United States. But so much of our country is the North, and so few of us who live in the South know anything about it. And that's sad. And we're all hoping to see that change, because the Arctic is so much a part of us. When you think of those early Europeans who came here 400 plus years ago to join a great partnership with the Inuit and the other First Nations people of this land in developing this country, those early Europeans weren't looking for Canada. When Samuel Champlain went to St. Lawrence, he wasn't looking for Canada. He was looking for a shortcut to the Far East, to the spices that had so excited Europeans. He thought he was in the North. He thought he was going to find the fabled Northwest Passage, the shortcut, over the top to the Far East. And so many of the great explorers who followed him were looking for the same thing, and in many ways helped open up this country. And I think of one in particular today, this week, this summer. Because I don't know how many of you realize that this summer marks the 400th anniversary of the voyage, the fourth and final voyage of Henry Hudson, who was perhaps one of the greatest explorers of his day. Tomorrow night, when we head out from Kuujjuaq into Ungava Bay and up towards the straits of top Ungava Bay, they're named after him, the Hudson Straits. And they flow into Hudson Bay. Now, that fourth voyage of Henry Hudson was not a great one for him. He never came back from it, as most of you know. He ended up wintering in James Bay, at the southern end of Hudson Bay. And then early in the summer of 1611, his crew mutinied, left him and his son, and half a dozen other crew members on a little, called a shallop, a little more than a rowboat, left them floating in Hudson Bay, never to be seen or heard from again. But his name is on the waters we'll travel. His name is on some great waters on this continent. The year before, he went looking for the Northwest Passage, the northern end of Canada. He'd been exploring up the river from New York, and that river bears his name, the Hudson River. So there's lots of history where we're going, lots of it, every direction you'll be looking at these next few days. But you know, there's still history to be written. And some of it could well be written, probably will be written, if what I heard from the students in that speed dating session today. Some of it will be written by the people in this room. There are great challenges that face our country and the countries of the world. You've heard them talked about already in these sessions. You know, there are a lot of different generations represented here right now. Some of the oldest were called the Great Generation, the greatest generation, for their contributions in saving the world through the Second World War and the conflicts that immediately followed. The next generation, which I'm a member of, not sure what we'll be remembered for, but maybe some good music, trying to get people to look out here. And the generation that's brought us the great technologies that we all use today. Won't be using on the next couple of weeks. But... And then your generation. You've been kind of left to clean up some of the messes we've made. And the challenges in front of you are substantial. But I believe in what I was hearing this morning. And I believe that you can meet it. And it'll all start on a program like this one. So over these next few weeks, remember the history. Remember the footsteps that you're retracing in some ways. And think about the challenge ahead of you. You're going to see it firsthand. And the decisions you make about what you do in the future will affect us all. So thank you. I'm really looking forward to this. Thanks.